then we're not saying inside of your body. You understand? So physical, when you tap into that, say, particularly in clairsentience or for physical mediumship, for those of you who are clairsentient, that means clear feeling. So your body will feel like an antenna or a measuring device, and it's only measuring the energy of what is coming in. That's the only thing that it's doing. What's actually coming in is going to measure it, and then it's going to go into the intellectual, which is the mental body. That's going to go into the psychological, aka the mind. The intellectual, its whole the way that it operates for telepathy is it processes things, right? So I look at it as like the meat processing plant, like, or any kind of like, anything that has like a line or a factory line where you're given something. The physical body is the food, and the intellectual body is the processing line, and you put the food, and all the little machines come and divvy everything up and separate everything and then prepare it to go outward. That's what your mind is doing. So when you can understand clairsentience, aka empathy, clear feeling, aka physical mediumship for some of you who really develop it to its maximum, then you're going to understand that you're taking stuff in to the processing center. The physical's measuring, it's got a little antenna, and it's taking things and going, yeah, I like that. Let's take that into the intellectual body. And then we're going to process it, divide it, and divvy it up, and then push it out to the world. This means to a certain level, everyone can be an empath or clairsentient, and to a certain level of your choosing, everyone can be a telepath. Everything knows how to process, divide, divvy things up, and then push it outward into the world, right? That's your mental body doing that. That's the mind, the intellectual component. Divides everything up. And because of our dualistic, polaristic thinking construct in our cultures for what we're taught, we are taught to divide and separate everything up. The problem is that the intellectual body likes to take over, and it likes to say it's the center of things. And the moment we're dividing things and making them into parts, we separate God. And that's why by the time it gets to the energetic body and the etheric body, we don't really know what's going on. Because the spirit is only wholeness. The spirit body returns you to wholeness, and it's doing that all the time. But when you're taking things in through the mental and then the physical components of the body, that's taught to separate. Both the physical and the mental are basically trained to separate everything. Then you want to give it over to the energetic body. The energetic body alchemizes, utilizes, and discerns what to do with the energy, but the physical body and mental body has already told it to separate. Confusion abounds. This is why we don't trust our gifts, because by the time everything gets to the spirit body, way out here, and spirit body says, whoa, what are you doing? That may feel accurate for the world, but not for you, because you are, according to the universal law of oneness and the cosmic law of wholeness, you are a whole, true, complete being. So anytime you separate anything, you're going to get confusion, and you're not going to trust your gifts. So this teaching in spirituality is not just new age for how we're taught to separate everything. I was catching up with some Greg Braden today, and I have no idea why. I don't know what I was looking for. I think it's just a reminder of the 5 constructs, but I did not find anything else I was looking for. Why? Because he was going back all to the energetic times of Ptah and Maat and all the different beings, and they were talking about the Shekinah being the she powers, and they were talking about this white robe of light. And he was paralleling throughout all the different cultures in Egypt throughout time with the white robe of light, or the garments that people would wear before they went into the temple. And he was talking about it, and it was like, wait a minute, do they actually believe that there's a garment that they put on? that they actually put on white robes before they enter. Well, apparently they do believe that, because the Mormons took that construct on, and they wear garments of white up underneath their clothes that they have to wear at all times. And then they put on garments on top of that they thought called the temple dress. We do that in Hinduism as well. To go into a temple, you have a temple dress. In certain mystery schools, they put on black to represent the void, but it's just a representing factor. But it continued from Egypt into now, this separation construct that we have to have a staff, a holy staff. We have to have something we put on our head, as represented by the Gurumukhi teachings. When you wrap your head in white, not that there's anything wrong, but we have been taught from really ancient times that everything that is already us, that's already ours, has to be awakened from something external and holy, and that the holy is only accessible in an external fashion. Do you follow me? And what I'm teaching you today, I had to bring a little bit of Neville Goddard into it, because it's the only teaching out there, other than Course in Miracles, that teaches you not to separate everything, that you are the author of your own God consciousness. And when you know that, the gifts that are meant to be for you are going to activate. If it's not clairvoyance, don't get mad. It might not be clairvoyance. If it's not clairaudience, those aren't the only clairs. Claircognizance and clairdivination are highly what's the word I'm looking for, guys? I'm so sick. Underestimated. They're just really undermined and not talked about. And they are so quiet. They give you the deepest accessibility to the technology of grace, which enlightens and invigorates the spirit. And no one's talking about it. Why? Why? Because we've been taught that we must see and hear something outside of us. And I'm going to keep teaching you the opposite until the cows come home, because it's not true. Okay, enough with my rant. Physical body, going back to that, when you take in information psychically, it'll feel, you guys have talked about the spirit bumps. You know you're a clairsentient because you get chills. You may get cold hands. You know, they say cold hands, warm heart. That's where this comes from. Or for me, I actually get cold feet and warm hands, very warm hands, and warm in the chest and throat area. And if I'm picking up on something I shouldn't psychically, I'll get hives. It's very, very rare. I can handle most things, but every great now and then you'll see someone get hives around their throat area when they're picking up on something that they shouldn't be picking up on, right? So it feels like an antennae. And the physical body is just a measuring device. So empaths and clairsentients, you know this because particularly the fingers warm up or cool down first, or the toes get cold or warm first. And then the external portions of the body, like the back of the neck, the top of the head, this is where you get the truth bumps, or what we call the chills, the spirit bumps, all those things. Sometimes a little goosebumps on your arm whenever you're getting psychic information. If you are meant to be a clairsentient being or a healer, then that'll come about. That'll come about in that way first for you. And you've got to learn to take that into your energetic body to know how to not divide anything through the intellectual body. Because the physical goes in this way. If you are a clairsentient or healer or empath, everything that comes in, your physical body will take it in this little antennae, and it'll measure it, bring it to the intellectual body, which is the mind, which processes it. And if you don't divide, if you don't try to separate what's happening and bring that into your thought streams, then by the time it goes to the energetic body, and the energetic body, if you remember, is for alchemizing. So the energetic body alchemizes, utilizes, and discerns what to do with your thought stream that you've just created, what to do with all that energy that came in through the physical. It decides what to do with it. So this means all clairsentients are just natural alchemists if you are pulling in from oneness and not separating. But the problem is most people are separating the thought streams initially. Out the gate, you're separating, right? Don't worry, I'll get to the how not to separate here in a minute. So from the energetic body empaths, then you go to the etheric body, which reminds you of who you are and won't let you forget. And this is when you just stop it typically. Then you're just like, well, it made sense when I thought about it, when I felt it. And then when I had emotions and thought streams, it was all so invigorating and refreshing and exciting. But how? When I bring it to the etheric body, that's the soul level. How come it doesn't feel like who I am? Because you separated somewhere along the way. How many clairsentients and empaths have done this? So many. You separate along the way. You doubt along the way. If you separated at any point in time, it's not who you are in wholeness. If you didn't think it was you, or if you placed a judgment or an attachment towards somebody else, if you want to learn more about how not to do that, read the teacher's manual and then the student worksheet at the very back of the full Course of Miracles when you get the full course. That'll teach you to stop separating everything. But we'll go through what that really practically looks like, if you like. But separate thoughts, basically anytime you separate, you start to feel fear, doubt, shame. You start to feel bored or less attentive to your own life when you separate your thought streams. So anytime you feel any of those things, you know you've separated somewhere from your true God consciousness. And then by the time it got to your imagination, you continued to separate and then you didn't trust it. This is why we don't trust things, physical mediums and empaths. This is why. And then by the time we get to the spirit body, we just kind of like toss it aside, lose interest in it because we need to return to wholeness. That's what the spirit does. That's its whole job, is to return you to wholeness. True, right? Now, insofar as telepaths, you are primarily intellectual body people. And you don't care if you're dividing it up. You get it out there anyway, and you're like, well, but I can prove it, right? Telepaths just get constant talking in the head. I don't enjoy it. I do have telepathy as one of my dominant gifts, and I don't enjoy it. Thankfully, I don't separate very often, so I'm able to stay clear, but it has taken the majority of my life to train my mind out of separation, because just sharing separation-based information to you is not going to be helpful. Just because I can tell you what color underwear you have on because you thought about it and you thought, well, I'm going to ask her what color underwear I have on. And I'm just like, red polka dots, you freak, why? And you're like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah, so what? What are you going to do with it in your life? So in that moment, I separated. Why? Because people enjoy separation to return to wholeness. That's divine paradox. It's going to be hard to stop separating, but that is the way you trust your abilities. In oneness, I would say, I don't really want to answer that question. We're going to pull you into what is oneness. So you and I are apparently both going to be wearing red polka dotted underwear right now. Red and white. Why? We don't know yet. That's a oneness-based thought. So in order to really trust your abilities, you have to get curious. You have to wonder. You have to imagine, why would a fractal of me be wearing red and white polka dotted underwear? Get curious, imaginative, laugh about it, telepaths. Because as you pull that, you don't pull from the physical, you go straight into the mental, straight into the psyche, the psychological constructs. And if you don't process, divide, and divvy everything up, you're going to be able to not just give people information that's going to make them go, ooh, and ah, and wow, you're so psychic. That's how I started my career. I thought if I could evidence to you that psychic powers do exist, that you would listen to yourself. And boy, was I wrong. The only thing that did was amp up my YouTube numbers and get your attention. So I guess it did help in a certain degree. And now I can teach you what matters.